Caleb, and then Jayden Daniels at 8. I think Drake has the best year, Brew. How confident are you in Drake May, young superstar?
Well, look, I would not be surprised if either of these three had the best year. I think it's that close. They've all had one great year. And so it's going to be interesting to see.
KW doesn't think Caleb's had a great
Yeah,
year.
USC was great. That one USC year was fantastic.
That's fair. Great might be a little over, but he was impressive last year.
Yes.
Breakout
and
season.
played his best. It got better as the year went on.
Yeah,
That's
breakout season.
Yeah,
I
but
think
didn't
that's
have
fair.
a Jayden level year or Drake level
Yeah,
year.
that's fair. But they all have had that one really impressive season. It'll be interesting to see if one of them falls back and doesn't play nearly as well. If it's Jayden, that would be 2 straight years. Correct. And it'll be interesting if one of them builds on it. Look, Drake has the best wide receiver of the bunch in A.J. Brown. He obviously has a very good offensive coordinator he's comfortable with now. I think his experience in the playoffs and then the Super Bowl was better than anything Caleb experienced or Jayden, just as far as to learn from. So I'm comfortable right now saying, okay, I think it'll be Drake. I wouldn't be surprised if it's any of them. But I think Drake, there's a lot to believe.
Very fair take.
I would be surprised if it's Jayden.
Really?
Yeah, I think he has the
He's
worst.
like your bronze medalist?
Yeah, I think he has the worst offensive infrastructure and arguably the worst weapons.
Yeah, that's
You know what I mean? Like, I think those two things just greatly work against him, and I think he is the biggest injury risk of the three.
He definitely is.
So, like, all of those are pretty
like that,
significant things. Now, you could also
probably
argue,
the biggest chip on his shoulder.
Yes.
I mean, he just.
no, that's fair. And some would argue he also has. I guess I was going to say that he has had the best individual season of any of the three, but Drake's season last year is better than Jayden's.
No, that assertion does not hold up. Not at all. Let's start with the most glaring point, playoff performance. My goodness. The gap between what Jayden Daniels accomplished in the postseason and what Drake May did is so vast that it is not even worth debating. It truly is not even close. I cannot emphasize that enough. Before I dive any deeper into this, I need to get something off my chest right away. Please, Washington Commanders faithful, I am begging you, please, do not forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch this entire video. When you do that, it genuinely makes a world of difference. The view counts surge, the subscriber numbers climb, and this is not about chasing vanity metrics for the sake of it. It is not about simply inflating numbers. It is about sustaining the ability to produce Washington Commanders content that people actually want to engage with and discuss. It allows us to keep having the most impartial, level-headed, and honest conversations about this team. Your support is invaluable, and I would be incredibly grateful for it. Thank you so much for that. Now, let's get back to the matter at hand. Jayden Daniels unequivocally had the superior season compared to the other two quarterbacks. I actually just released a video a few days ago that systematically breaks down all the data and proves that point conclusively. So, we can put that particular piece of nonsense to rest. We can, and we absolutely should, stop entertaining that argument. The playoff production alone is incredibly telling when you look at all three signal callers. When you examine what Jayden did in the playoffs, juxtaposed with Caleb Williams' performance and Drake May's, the disparity is glaring. It is simply not a contest. It is not even close. Furthermore, when you consider what each team required from its quarterback, Jayden Daniels was clearly tasked with doing more heavy lifting. He made more spectacular plays and bore a significantly heavier burden. What are we even debating here? You might point out that Drake May reached the Super Bowl, but Jayden had to face the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game. That is not his fault. And the reality is that he played quite well in that contest. I am not going to claim it was his finest performance, but he was not the reason they lost. Some of his statistics from that game look a bit worse than they should because I am fairly certain he threw an interception late in the contest when the outcome was already effectively decided. But the Eagles were an absolute juggernaut that season. It is perfectly fine to acknowledge that reality. I know Commanders fans might not want to admit it, but that was the situation. They were a phenomenal team. Jayden Daniels certainly performed significantly better than whatever Patrick Mahomes managed to do against that same Eagles defense. And if you want to start comparing NFC Conference Championship performances, let's look at what Drake May did in his conference title game. He beat Jarrett Stidham? Oh, congratulations. That is truly impressive. Consider this, Jayden had to go on the road for all 3 of his playoff games and was not bailed out by his defense the way Drake May was. In fact, I think Drake May had more fumbles on the season than Jayden Daniels had touchdown passes. That is not a knock on Jayden, it is simply a stark illustration of the difference in their situations. It is just baffling to me. It is truly mind-boggling. Now, there is one point where I do agree with the prevailing sentiment. I do feel that the Patriots and the Bears currently have, let's say, a more favorable overall situation. I think they are positioned better. I love the Bears setup 100%. I am a massive believer in Ben Johnson. I think that as long as health is maintained and the offensive weapons are sufficient, even if Caleb Williams never fully transforms into that mythical, all-time legend, he is going to put up numbers. He will have production because it will be embedded within Ben Johnson's system. That is the gift you receive when you have an outstanding coach. It is almost a guarantee of a baseline of 25 touchdowns just by virtue of the scheme. That production is just there. And that is before you even consider the talent surrounding him, which I believe the Bears do possess. Clearly, Caleb is a good quarterback, a great quarterback, so he will add his own dynamism to the offense. He will be able to carry his own weight and then some. I am also a big believer in Drake May. I have said this countless times. I love this quarterback class. I have a lot of faith in many of these situations. But that is precisely what makes this so frustrating for multiple reasons. For one, we cannot even collectively acknowledge the reality that what Jayden Daniels accomplished as a rookie in 2024 was clearly superior to what Drake May and Caleb Williams did in 2025. This is not an opinion, it is a statistical fact. It is an eye test fact. And as I mentioned, I have already broken down those numbers in detail. I am not going to repeat that entire process here. I was so tempted to pull up the graphics, but I am resisting the urge. That was a great video I made, and it generated a lot of discussion in the comments. So, definitely go check that out. We even threw some Lamar Jackson comparisons in there for good measure. Then, when you factor in the playoffs, the whole picture becomes crystal clear. It is very obvious what Jayden had to do. The team he had, the accomplishments he achieved, it is like night and day compared to the others. So, it is really frustrating that we cannot even agree on that fundamental point. It does not make any sense. And I say this as someone who has been advocating for Drake May to be in the MVP conversation. I obviously think Drake May was awesome and deserved MVP consideration, at least over Matthew Stafford. But I also argued that Jayden Daniels need to get some MVP nods in 2024. The Patriots situation is interesting. For one, I believe in Josh McDaniels. Even if A.J. Brown is on the decline or regressing, which is honestly still to be determined, considering how unhappy he was in Philly, he is still good enough to generate production. I also think some of the other receivers they acquired, like from Green Bay, offer quality and production. And I do think Drake May is an incredibly gifted quarterback who will continue to evolve and improve. So, I believe the production and quality of play are there for all of them. However, I do think the path is easier for Drake May and Caleb Williams. This brings me to a crucial point where I want to plant my flag. When people ask, should we be confident that May will have the best year of the trio, they are essentially asking, who do you think will have the best year? Define best. Are we just using a statistical argument? Because that is nonsense. I am going to tell you right now, this is where people fail. They cannot juggle multiple variables simultaneously, and they cannot wrap their heads around certain nuances. What Jayden Daniels did in 2024 was infinitely, and I truly mean infinitely, more impressive than what Matthew Stafford did in his 2025 MVP year. This is because of what Jayden Daniels did, how he did it, and what he needed to do. The sheer burden he carried was immense. Jayden Daniels was clearly more of an MVP in 2024 with the Washington Commanders than Matthew Stafford was in 2025. And again, I think Matthew Stafford is genuinely one of the all-time great quarterbacks in the NFL. His arm talent is insane. That is why I love using him as an example, because I truly appreciate his game. I am so bummed that so many of his prime years were wasted in Detroit. I think he is incredibly gifted and is honestly one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch of all time, simply because he just lets it rip with no hesitation. I love it. But if we are being honest with ourselves, a lot of quarterbacks could have had the season that Stafford had because of Sean McVay, the elite offensive line, the elite run game, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. There are a lot of quarterbacks who could have succeeded in that system. However, there are not a lot of quarterbacks who would have been able to have the season that Jayden Daniels had with the Washington Commanders. There simply are not. It is funny, I keep getting these reminders, and I forget which video it was, but I talked about it recently. It was about the Seattle Seahawks. It is so clear to me, the way people are still talking about that Super Bowl season. A lot of you guys did not really watch those games. You just did not. You were too late to the party. You did not realize they were a good team until it was already week 14 or something. And even then, in the first 14 weeks, you were skeptical. You were not buying it. Every time they won, you had a yeah, but ready. Most people were not watching the Seahawks versus the Cardinals. They just were not. That was a bit of an aha moment for me, where I realized maybe I am picking up on things a bit more than I used to. Maybe it is just my own experience from making videos and listening. But for whatever reason, more recently, I have been able to tap into this feeling that when you make comments about something, I am not so sure you actually watched it all unfold. I think that is the moment I am having right now with Jayden Daniels and the Commanders. It is like, you did not actually watch all those Commanders games. You did not watch Week 1 against the New York Giants. You were not that interested in that game. You did not watch the Commanders versus the Arizona Cardinals. You did not watch that game against the Cleveland Browns. Maybe you watched the game against the Baltimore Ravens, sure. You probably did not even watch the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Get out of here. You did not watch those games. Stop it. And you know how I know they did not watch it? They said they would rather have Baker Mayfield over Jayden Daniels in that playoff game. I remember that so vividly because I made the video about it, and people freaked out at me. I said I thought the Commanders were going to win that game. They were like, what? A rookie on the road against Baker Mayfield? And I said, yeah, I don't think that is that controversial. And again, I was right. Then I said the same thing about the Detroit Lions, the number 1 seed. I said, yeah, you guys really do not know who Jayden Daniels is right now, do you? So, when people say these things, I have to ask, did you actually watch it? Did you actually see it? You can look at the box score. You can look at the stats. But did you actually see how they came about? Look at the plays Caleb Williams made. Jayden Daniels made a lot of plays. I do not know if you know that. His fourth quarter stats, his game-winning drives, his come-from-behind victories, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty spectacular. His passing was really elite. His accuracy was really elite. His anticipation was really elite. It was quite special. Now, he faces a disadvantage. You can say you believe in the new offensive coordinator, oh my gosh, his name is completely escaping me, Cliff Kingsbury? No, wait, it's not. I'm blanking. But regardless, you can say you believe in him. You can say he's a super genius. All of that still takes time. He still has to become an experienced coach, and he is not an experienced coach right now. Even if you have all the belief in him, it takes time. So, I do not know. It is so funny because I have had this clip queued up for hours, but I did not get the chance to record it yet. I wanted to make a Washington Commanders clip, so I looked at this and saw the bottom line, Jayden Daniels, Caleb, Drake. I was trying to think of what I could say. Because I assumed, especially since it says, will be competent Drake May has the best year, that it will. Be a heavily pro-Drake May clip, but they would still mention Jayden Daniels enough for me to work from it. I was thinking in my mind, what could I say? How could I work this clip, even though I had not watched it until right now? I was assuming there would not be any prominent takes. Then they gifted it to me. They gave it to me on a silver platter. The idea that the playoff experience Drake May had was a better learning experience because he struggled? I do not understand that logic. I am telling you right now, if I had to pick one quarterback for a single playoff game, it would be Jayden Daniels, 100%. For one game right now. I am not saying that is forever. I am not saying that one day, maybe even this coming season, that I would not put them all on the same level. Because, as you guys know, I do not like to rank quarterbacks. I hate the number system. That is not how I do it at all. It is entirely possible that next year, I will say I put all three of them on the same level. So, even though right now I am very much in the Jayden Daniels camp, because I am looking at it as, okay, we have three quarterbacks who have had accomplishments. What do we think is better? I made a similar video before, and a lot of Chicago Bears fans got mad at me, asking why I was bashing Caleb. I was not bashing Caleb at all. I can still say that what Jayden Daniels accomplished was better. Check my tape on Drake May from all last offseason, defending him non-stop, saying, do not downplay what he is doing. I do not care that it was against a bad team. No, the quality of play was through the roof. Even some of the resiliency he showed through the playoffs was impressive to me, all things considered. But if we are strictly looking at this as, hey, this is what was accomplished. We have a season from each quarterback. Who had the best year? What was most impressive? What season should a quarterback theoretically be able to build off of? The answer is, again, clearly Jayden. Now, if you just want to say who is going to get better production, that factors in coaching, offensive line, and all the other stuff, the things I always put into practice when we talk about Lamar, Josh, Mahomes, and Burrow. It is never any of that in isolation. It is why I give Josh Allen more emphasis than Patrick Mahomes, because of the gifts he has had around him. I try my best to be consistent. And here I am in a similar situation where I think that potentially those other teams are giving more gifts to their quarterbacks than the Commanders are giving to Jayden. But I do not know. I have definitely been wishy-washy this coming season with the Commanders. I am starting to buy into the new OC, but I am also kind of concerned. I think they need another receiver, which is why I kept saying they should go get someone. Although, things are getting weird over there as well. I meant strictly on-field stuff, I am not messing around with off-field stuff. I do think they need another receiver. I do want them to have another weapon. I do think Dan Quinn can maybe finally get that defense going. But now Jayden Daniels will be learning a new system in a way that Drake May and Caleb Williams will not be. So, he is at a disadvantage there as well. Learning a new system and having a new play caller takes time, takes months of regular season play. You are allowed to have that nuance. You are allowed to have those conversations. You are allowed to put that into practice. But it is really hard for people to understand why Jayden Daniels actually was more of an MVP and had a more impressive season in 2024 than Matthew Stafford had in 2025. They will just look at the touchdowns and this and that, and I say, watch the games. It does not mean Stafford was not elite. That is why I love using Stafford as an example. If anyone says I am a Stafford hater, they could not be more wrong. I absolutely love Matthew Stafford. In that Super Bowl, I was so torn because I really wanted Stafford to win, but I also wanted Joe Burrow to win. I was like, they both deserve it so much. I was tossing and turning, especially when it was coming down to the wire. But it does not matter what you want because whatever is going to happen anyway. So, again, if you call me a Stafford hater, you are just confused. What Jayden Daniels did was more impressive. It just was. Yet people cannot understand that. They just look at a top-end statistical number. It is one of those moments when everyone picks and chooses when they want to use the roster against a quarterback or allow them to benefit from said roster. We knock Brock Purdy for having a great roster. We knock Jalen Hurts for having a great roster. We just pick and choose. Matthew Stafford gets no knock whatsoever. He can have Puka, he can have Cooper Kupp, he can have Sean McVay, he can have an elite offensive line, he can have an elite run game. It does not matter. Jalen Hurts? No. Brock Purdy? Not allowed at all. It is just ridiculous. The Bears and the Patriots made life so much easier for Drake May and Caleb Williams compared to Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. Seriously, to me, that aspect of it is just not even remotely close. There were way more layups, way more schemed opportunities, way more consistency in the run game, coaching, and key defensive plays or just overall defense. That aspect is just not even close to me. So, it is definitely more open in terms of who will have the best year of the trio this coming season. That is an absolute roll of the dice. If anything, I think it is probably more likely to be Caleb, just because I believe in that infrastructure so much. I believe that as long as Caleb just improves his accuracy and hits more layups, how does he not have 30-plus touchdowns? I just do not see how it is possible. The run game should still be elite. The offensive line, I know they lost a player or two, so it will be interesting unless the O-line really falls off. But I just think Ben Johnson is going to be able to get 30-plus touchdowns out of that offense. I see that there. Unless Caleb cannot execute the offense at a consistent high level, everything else is on the table. That is why with the Commanders, it is a wait-and-see situation. Theoretically, with Drake May, since it is a harder schedule and it is kind of interesting to see who A.J. Brown is at this point in time, I imagine Drake May will get more comfortable and take fewer sacks. I could see him having a repeat season of what he had last year, or right around that. I do not know if it is an automatic 5,000-yard, 50-touchdown season, but I think there will be plenty of moments of success and production. It is definitely more of a straight line for them than for Jayden, where there is still a lot more exploration that needs to take place. That is a disservice, and that conversation to me is totally fair game. In that moment, I try to be as consistent and as unbiased as I can. I can say I think Jayden was clearly the best out of them, but then I can also say I think the Bears are in a better situation. You cannot then call me a Commanders hater. It is clearly not doubting the Commanders and Jayden. That is why when you are consistent, it gives you the freedom to talk about anything. It gives you the freedom to have these conversations, even if they can sometimes feel uncomfortable or confusing. You just have to be patient and understand how to navigate them. Listen, these lists are always silly to me anyway. We did not even focus on the actual rankings themselves because I do not really care. CBS's top 25 under 25, I do not care. Especially because it includes other position players as well. They had like Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think he is second or something. I forget who was first. Bijan Robinson, maybe. I do not know how we do rankings when you are including quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. Bijan Robinson is elite. Jackson Smith-Njigba is elite. But quarterbacks are really, really important, right? I am not going to get hung up on the actual list itself. But I am not so sure that Drake May deserves to be multiple spots ahead of Caleb and ahead of Jayden. If you are forced to do it, then I would do a 6, 7, 8 or whatever number, wherever they lie. But if it is also strictly based on what you have done, Jayden Daniels wins. If it is based on predictions and what you believe is going to happen, then that completely opens the door for many opportunities. I had also said this before last season. I said if we are just going based off what we are seeing right now and factoring in age and injuries and all of this, out of all the quarterbacks, including Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, factoring in everything, Drake May might be the best quarterback for you to pick moving forward, because of his age, health, size, strength, and versatility. That was a very specific question, and I like doing that. I like putting very specific parameters around it. I made that video, and everyone was like, imagine picking Drake May over Patrick Mahomes, who has won 2 rings. But that is not what we were talking about. We were factoring in everything right now, what you are seeing, age, financial obligation, health. We were not talking about the global conversation of including 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Since Jayden Daniels at that time did get banged up multiple times, it is easy to be like, okay, if I had to pick a quarterback right now moving forward, safest play, maybe Drake May. That is the fascinating thing about sports conversations. I can make a statement like that, but also say Jayden Daniels is better. Jayden Daniels is better. You just have to be willing to not see things so binary. You have to be willing to just exist in the nuance. Those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders? Apparently, everyone is just having better seasons than him.